Harihi Om. Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryan Karavavahai, Tejasvi Navadhi Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. So continuing Mahabharata, now the Pandavas are leaving the kingdom. It means leaving the city at least, because outside the city be forest. Because in the Vedic system you have a city, or a town, or even a village. You have where everybody lives and its demarcation. Then you have, depending on the size of the city, a certain amount of land that surrounds the complete city. That has to be open land. That's where all the farming and the animal, the cows and other animals are grazed and everything like that. Then after that, then that's forest, and that's where you get all the things that you get from forests. So you could come closer together than that gap of land. And then let's say it's another city and it's growing, it has that gap of land. So when those two gaps of land touch, that's it. City doesn't get any bigger. You want more? Start another city. So it's not like today where the two cities come and they merge and then one side of the street is this city and the other side's another. No. In Vedic they wouldn't have that. The Pandavas had left Hastinapur by the northern gate, accompanied by a number of servants. As they were leaving the city, crowds looked on and openly criticized the Kuru elders. When the wicked Duryodhana aspires to this kingdom, we are all lost. Our wealth, families, homes, and even ourselves are gone. Ruled by that sinful, malicious, avaricious man who is aided only by other sinful men, we are doomed. How can we find any happiness? Let us follow these virtuous heroes to the forest. Right? So for the citizens, they considered it better to go to the forest with the Pandavas who are virtuous, even though it might be a simpler lifestyle, because they know they'll be protected, they'll be safe. Well, if they stay in the city with Duryodhana, they're not sure what their future will be like, because we see he's avaricious. Whatever he wants, that's what he does. So that's the whole point in the Vedic concept. That's not a good ruler. Because he can manage, he's good at politics, that's not enough. It has to be, he knows how to protect the citizens. He knows how to follow the natural laws of nature given by Krishna to deal with society so that everybody is protected. A few citizens approached to Yudhishthira. Where will you go, leaving us behind? We are distressed to learn of your defeat by deceitful means, right? So everything gets around very quickly, right? Take us with you. We do not wish to meet with destruction by living in the kingdom of a sinful king. By such association, sin will pollute us. Whereas by associating with you, we will be uplifted to the highest level of virtue. Right, so because the value of the people is that of elevating themselves, because that's the purpose of human life. It means that eating, sleeping, mating, defending, that will go on, and your facilities to maintain that. But the main focus should be on how to uplift yourself, how to create more and more higher consciousness in the living entity, right? So that would be, every citizen would be thinking that this is the way it goes. And then amongst those, then there'll be those who understand they want to take it to the ultimate position of becoming fully God conscious and developing a relationship with the Lord. Yudhishthira folded his palms and replied, we are indeed blessed. As the people, with the Brahmins at their head, credit us with merits we do not possess. I, with all my brothers, would ask you to do one thing for the sake of love you bear us. The king, along with our grandfather Bhishma, the wise Vidura, our mother Kunti, and our friends are in Hastinapur. Please stay here and cherish them. Only this will satisfy me. So Yudhishthira's point is that you stay here, you take care and see that everything is going nicely here, because everyone that's important to them is there in the city. I mean, Duryodhana happens to be there also, but the point is all those that are important to the Pandavas, they are also living in the city. The citizens cried out in pain. Sorrowfully, they unwillingly retraced their steps back into the city, thinking only of the Pandavas. So they went out with them for some distance, like that. And after they got, because like you said, you have the palace, the walls of the city. So you go out through the gate, and they've gone through the northern gate. Then going through that gate, there's going to be the pasturing lands and farming lands. Then when that ends and the forest starts, that's when they stopped and said, they asked them to return. When the citizens were gone, the Pandavas ascended their chariots and moved towards the north. At dusk, they arrived at the bank of the Ganges and found the great banyan tree known as Pūrṇa. Because many of these big banyan trees, they have names because they're so big and famous, and they live forever, so then they get their names. They decided to spend the night there and thus dismounted their chariots and bathed in the Ganges. So they took their chariots because they're going to take, different things with them. Their servants are all there, and their weapons like that. But at the same time, as they're in deer skins and that, they'll live in the forest. As darkness fell, the many Brahmins who had followed the brothers lit their sacred fires, which cast an orange glow into the black night. Those holy rishis sitting around the fires chanted Vedic mantras in melodic tones, soothed the Pandavas. Surrounded by such self-realized souls, Yudhishthira and his brothers shone resplendent like celestials in the heavens. Because even though they were going out, and all these very righteous, religious, and knowledgeable people, they went with them, and so they're performing their evening rites and all that, their fire sacrifices and everything. And so, in this way, it creates such a wonderful atmosphere, an uplifting atmosphere. And so in that way, it's just like in the heavenly planets, when Indra's there with all his associates, and all the Brahmins and other performing the auspicious rituals. The same with the Pandavas, Yudhishthira and the Pandavas. In the morning, the brothers prepared to enter the forest. They sat before the sacred fire and offered prayers to the gods to invoke auspiciousness. They then asked the Brahmins to bless them and to allow them to leave. Right? So basically, because you have that kind of like island that's there between the Jamuna and the Ganga. And so that would be all the main thing. But now once you get to the Ganga, then when they cross that, then they'll be going into the main forests. Okay, who did they ask? Then they asked the Brahmins to bless them and to allow them to leave. Right? Because their idea is that, okay, the citizens went, they stayed back, because what are they going to do out there? And that, how will they be maintained, everything, they have their needs, they have their family life and all. Then the Brahmins and the sages followed them farther out. And so then it's auspicious in that, and so then they have their nice, how you say, auspicious evening and all that. And then in the morning, they'll do again all their auspicious rituals. And then they think, okay, now it's time to go. So they're just thinking it'll just be the 5 Pandavas, their wife, and their servants. Yudhishthira spoke sorrowfully. Oh no, yes, we were robbed of our kingdom, wealth, and everything else we possessed. O best of men, we will not be able to maintain you, as is our duty, right? Kshatriyas take care of the province. In the forest, we will have to subsist on fruits and wild roots. The forest is also filled with dangerous beasts and serpents. Please therefore return to Hastinapur. The suffering of Brahmins can overwhelm even the gods. What to speak of ourselves? I do not wish to be the cause of your privations, O most holy ones. So, if the Brahmins are in an unfortunate situation, then that affects the kings, it affects the demigods. Everybody is worried about that because the Brahmins are dedicated to performing all these proper study, teaching, religious rituals, and that they are taken care of very nicely. And so, if they're in a difficult situation, then no one can be comfortable. So they're saying here is that, therefore, then we don't have any facilities. As kings, we would be able to take care, but we lost our kingdom and everything. So therefore, you please now, go back. The Brahmin's leader, Shaunaka, replied, O king, we will go with you. Do not be anxious about how we will survive. We shall procure our own food and take great delight in an ascetic life. Because as Brahmins, they can live in the city, they can live in the forest. They're comfortable either way. Because for them, they've controlled their senses and they have that regulated lifestyle. So they can live on that very simple kind of thing. They're not like the kings that have all the royal fare and everything. By our prayers and meditations we shall do you good, and we shall keep you entertained with recitations from sacred scriptures. Right? So then when they're not moving and all that, when they're sitting in one place, then they can discuss the scriptures, because morning and evening will be the basic rituals and sadhana and everything like that. But then in the different parts of the day and that, or in the earlier parts or later parts of the evening, then they can sit and discuss the scriptures and everything. So that's what Shaunaka Rishi then is mentioning. I do not doubt that it must be as you say, replied Yudhishthira. I am always pleased in the companies of Brahmanas, but now I am destitute. My brothers are anguished on my account, and I see myself as reproachable. See how shall I now see you, who do not deserve to suffer? Subsist on food you have procured, right? So instead of giving nicely in charity to the Brahmins, they have to go out and get their own food. And so then he's thinking this is not very nice. Alas, fie upon Dhritarashtra's wicked sons, because these Brahmins are here, they can't take care. So they feel they would like to be able to perform their duty, but they're unable to, right, because of this situation. Yudhishthira wept with his head in his hands. In Indraprastha, he had maintained tens of thousands of Brahmins. Now he could not provide food for even a few. Seeing the king feeling so dejected, Shaunaka consoled him by speaking from the Vedas. 1,000 causes of grief and fear overwhelmed the ignorant day by day, but they never overwhelmed the learned. O king, intelligent men like you are never cast into illusion. Reverses cannot bewilder you. Who well knows the eternal truths of the Vedas? Bring that wisdom to mind now, right? Because he knows he's been trained in so many things. So when that comes up, then bring that to mind. All these things are there. Fall back on that. Study that. Remember that. Apply that. Then you'll be able to be uplifted from this difficult situation. Shaunaka explained how the root of suffering is attachment to matter. As a fire in a hollow of a tree consumes the whole tree to its roots, so a small attachment, if nurtured, can destroy a man. One who has renounced attachment, even though living in the world, becomes free from all evil passions and the suffering they produce. Because once you're attached to something, then there's the anxiety of how you'll be able to deal with it, attain it, maintain it, protect it. All these anxieties come up, and they're constant. And so if there's no attachment, there's no anxiety. It's actually that simple. But because people are attached, then there'll always be anxiety. So the misery of the material world is due to the attachments. So now if that's given up, then there'll be no misery. But to just give that up, we're people, we're individuals. How will we give that up? So one has to transfer that attachment to some higher position. So by transferring our attachment to Krishna, and so it's about Krishna, about serving Krishna, pleasing Krishna, doing things for Krishna, then we give up the lower attachments, and then one doesn't suffer from the material reverses that are there. Because the material world is designed that it will always be changing, and therefore, because of that, whatever situation is there is not stable, like the external situation that you're in. And so, by then taking shelter of the Lord, then one can find that stability. One is able to appreciate, and then one is unaffected by the material world. So that's what Shaunaka Rishi is explaining here. Yudhishthira listened attentively. Taking delight in the knowledge he had heard so many times, he never tired of hearing it. Shaunaka told him that the desire for wealth and opulence, which could never be alleviated, is man's worst enemy, right? So no matter how much wealth and opulence you get, you never have enough. Like, basically, Duryodhana is living in a kingdom that is reputed as, the world leaders. And so the amount of wealth they have is vastly more than basically any other kings. But it may not have been as great as it was at the time of Pandu. And it's definitely nowhere near the volume of Indraprastha, of Yudhishthira's wealth. But the point was it was more wealth than most anybody else would have. And how much can you... Doesn't matter. If you have 1,000 rupees, you can eat 4 chapatis. You have 10,000 rupees, you can still only eat 4 chapatis. you have 1 crore, you can still only eat 4 chapatis. Let's say you have 1 billion or 1 trillion, you can still only eat 4 chapatis. You can only sleep X amount of time. You can only put on so much clothes. So the point is there's the idea, the more I get, the more I'll be happy, but your life doesn't actually change. Now you just have to worry about all that money. So the point is there is no end to the desire for wealth and opulence. That's why then one cultivates satisfaction. Whatever you have, you're satisfied with. Then if in performance of your duties more comes, nice, that's added to what you have. But the idea that, oh no, my position now, I need to get this, then I'll be happy. You'll do that forever, life after life, unlimited lifetimes. You'll never reach the end of that. There is no, it's like a dog chasing its tail. It just keeps going around. The highest happiness comes from contentment. While the struggle for wealth, fame, followers, and the association of loved ones is the cause of bondage and ultimately pain. Right? So it's you perform your duties, and what's coming comfortably with that, then that's what you have. That facility, that money, that home, the family, whatever you have, whatever you put in your honest work, and then that's what you have, and you manage that very nicely, then you be happy with that. Because it's not by putting in more time. Let's say the person is, let's say, just for example, making 1,000 rupees a day. Okay? So then he's making 1,000 a day, which is not bad. Okay? And he's putting in 8 hours of work. Okay? Now there's somebody who's making 2,000 a day. Does that mean they're doing 16 hours of work a day? And then you're going to have the guy that's making 3,000. Does that mean he's putting in 24 hours? What about the guys that have millions and billions? Right? Do they have some magical little thing that they do that they fit, 10,000 hours per day? We only get 24 hours, but they get 10,000 hours, so that's how they can make 1 billion? No, in the same 8 hours of work, one guy makes 1 billion, one guy makes 1 million, one guy makes 100,000, one guy makes 10,000, one guy makes 1,000, one guy makes 100, one guy makes nothing. Same work, same time. So that's the point, is that you put in your work, that's how much you'll get. You can't, it's not, I do work more, I'll get more. No, it won't work like that. Therefore, you should not covet anything. Do not desire to accumulate wealth, even for virtuous purposes. It is better never to have touched mud than to wash it off after being covered in it, right? If you never get involved, then there's not a problem. But now, here it says accumulate even for virtuous purposes. So the only point is that you perform your duty because that's what Krishna said. You perform your duty, and you do those duties to please Krishna. But if we're absorbed in the results that we get from that and all that, but the actual point of performing those duties to please Krishna is not for the virtue. It's to actually develop love for Krishna. It's prema. Prema is the actual goal. It's just like, let's say you cook for the family. So by cooking for the family, okay, they all have something nice to eat, that, there's that maybe recognition that's there, that you cook nicely in that. But the actual most important thing is the interaction with the family. That affection that's there, those shared moments, that's the most important. So whether you have a very elaborate meal or have a very simple meal, a very, very expensive meal, a very simple, if you have those interactions, it was successful. But if you don't, then it doesn't matter how much money. Money will not buy relationships, right? You can use it for the field to maintain facilities, but relationships are separate from your money, your facilities, everything. And so relationships this life, go nicely, but the problem is they end at some point. Life is temporary. But if you develop a relationship with the Supreme Lord, that's eternal. That doesn't end. So along with performing one's duties and interacting with family and friends and community, you have to be cultivating your relationship with the Lord, because that's the eternal one. That one doesn't go away. Everything else, when the body's finished, it's all finished. Yes. If you wish to acquire virtue, then free yourself from all desires for wealth. So that's the higher virtue. The detachment's a higher virtue than performing the karma and getting the results. So he's recommending he does sense. And why would he be saying that? Is he going and saying that while he's on the throne? No, he's saying that because they're in the forest. So since this is he's in the forest, follow this path of renunciation. If he was in the city, of course, he's a big king. Okay, so stop here. Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki